The Ballads of Mayhem by Victor T. Robinson. The second chapter. 1. The drowning Jacob Johnson was born 1989 in Springwood, Illinois. His mother Alice and her girlfriend Yvonne was high school classmates until tragedy brought them together as a lesbian couple and they decided to get married. Alice took Yvonne's last name as her own and she changed Jacob's last name to Jacob Miller. They decided to move to Shreveport, Louisiana, where Alice gets her job as a chef and Yvonne starts an internship at a hospital. 5 years later, Jacob just started high school as a freshman and has been really unpopular in school. Jacob suffers from strange nightmares and has urges to hurt people and daydreams about it. Especially when kids talk about his mothers Alice and Yvonne, he gets really upset and he will kill for his mothers if he has the urge to, but Jacob has been very good with not acting on his urges. Jacob's biggest enemy is Jack Castle, captain of the junior varsity football team. Jack and Jacob both play on the junior high baseball team together. Jack doesn't just not like Jacob, he hates Jacob with a passion because everybody on the team thought Jacob was a better player than he ever was. But now one thing will change for Jacob. Now a beautiful girl named Stephanie Freeman has just transferred from high school in New Orleans. Stephanie's mom Jessica, who is a horror novelist and she is a recovering alcoholic, and her father was crushed to death 10 years ago and her mom has been coping with his death for years. Stephanie meets Jacob at lunchtime for the first time ever, and when they meet sparks fly. It's love at first sight. Stephanie and Jacob start sitting at lunch every day and Jacob walks her every day, and some of the girls around school start seeing Jacob in a different life when they see how he interacts with Stephanie. Alice and Yvonne meet Stephanie and they know that she is a good influence for him, and before he met her he was miserable and now is in love and it's a better look for him. Jack tries to test Stephanie and to see if maybe she needs a better man, but Stephanie embraces Jack in front of the whole school. Jack looks like a fool. Stephanie and Jacob's relationship is strong and no one will break this bond. 2 years later, it's the beginning of summer. Jacob and Stephanie have enrolled as summer counselors for Camp Firewood. Last summer Jacob and Stephanie spent time in Miami Beach and they've both never been to summer camp. Angelina's Stephanie's best friend told them the camp is looking for new young counselors and Stephanie wanted to do it, so Jacob it's too. 2 days into being on campsite, Angelina's mother Danielle Dawson brings her autistic 13-year-old son Jamie to watch by Angelina so Danielle can enjoy the company of a man that just came in her life because lately she has been going through a terrible divorce with her ex Franklin. Angelina is upset and Stephanie comforts her. Throughout the summer Jacob had to watch over Jamie sometimes as a counselor, and he realized that Jamie is NCE. Irritation and his temper tantrums are the worst when he can't get his way, and Jacob urges to hurt people has comes back after 2 years of keeping them at bay, but with Jamie. He is slowly becoming unhinged. Jacob volunteers to watch him so Stephanie and Angelina can bond. He loves Angelina like a sister and Angelina is good for Stephanie and it's make him feels good. So me days are better than others. It's night time now, July 23, 2003, a day after dealing with the children and Jamie all day. Jacob and Stephanie organized a bonfire party for all the counselors while all the kids are sleeping. Angelina and her new beau Josh are cooking on the grill while Jacob brings the group some beers. Jacob is feeling good and relaxed, and this summer has been great for Jacob. Has been the leader of the counselor and has been doing real good tolerating the kids, and he has enjoyed himself when he not around the kids and the voices inside his head has gone away. Stephanie pulls Jacob to the side and she tells him how much she loves him and how she is very devoted to him and she wants to be with him for the rest of her life, and Jacob has never felt this love before. She is his first love and is overwhelmed with how she feels about him, but he also in love with her and obsessive with her, and it is welcomed by her, and she knows that Jacob has a dark soul and she feels it and she knows how it feels to dark, and she talks of her family history and the darkness that lives within, and the truth about her father's death has never been told, and she blames her mother. Jacob and Stephanie are invested in their relationship and she pledged her heart and soul, and so does he, and then they joined their friends at the bonfire. Stephanie starts talking to Angelina about what Jacob and I were talking about, but she kept some of what was said a secret, and they talked about going skinny dipping in the lake. Jacob hears somebody by the lake screaming her name, and Stephanie doesn't hear it over the music, but Jacob walks towards the yelling, and it's Jamie, and Jacob tells Jamie to go back to sleep nicely, but Jamie starts to get louder with Jacob, and he tells him again to go back to sleep, and he says he needs Angelina, and Jacob says that she is busy and told him to go to sleep, and Jamie hits Jacob with a tree branch, and Jacob knocks Jamie down, and Jacob is enraged. Jacob's arm is being bruised up after Jamie hitting him with the tree branch, and Jacob chasing after Jamie, and he tries to run back at the camp, and Jacob picks up Jamie and throws in the lake, and Jacob goes in the lake, and the voices comes back and tell him to kill Jamie, and he's so full of rage, and Jacob pushes Jamie's head down in the lake and starts ranting. All you had to do is go to fucking sleep, you fucking slow motherfucker. All you do fucking yap all fucking day long about this and that. I want my burger with mayonnaise, no buns. What the fuck is wrong with you? All you to do was to go to fucking sleep, and now you are fucking dead for fucking with me. Jamie is dead, and when he looks up he sees Stephanie standing there, and she has a horrific look on her face, and she walks up to him, and she says, Angelina is coming behind me, you have to do something. Jacob yells, so Mebody help me, and he pulls Jamie out the lake, and Angelina comes running, and she sees her brother Jamie in Jacob's arms, and he lays her in front of her, and put on a show to look like he trying to save him, but Jamie has been dead for a few minutes. The ambulance shows up, then the police, and they ask to talk to Jacoby and Stephanie, who backs Jacob's story, and it's the one who had created the story, which shocks Jacob. After the cops are done with them, Stephanie tells Jacob, I don't know why you killed Jamie, and I W&Q style on you. I just want you to know I accept you as you are, and I don't judge you. Jacob says, I didn't want to kill him, but the voices told me to. I tried to control it, but he hit me with a fucking tree branch, so the fucker had to go, and it's took a long time for him to die. If he would have went to bed like I told him to do, then he would have still been alive. He fucked himself. Stephanie says the reason he came outside to find Angelina was to get her to sing him back to sleep, because he has very bad nightmares, and the only way he could sleep was if she would sing that all. Jacob says he didn't know if I knew that I wouldn't have killed him. I know all about terrible nightmares, and he slaps himself, and he drops to his knees, and Stephanie consoles him. Angelina's mom Danielle shows up, and she sees her dead sons being put in the back of the corner van, and breaks down, and she sees Angelina and goes to her and says to her, what the hell happened? You was supposed to be watching him, not playing around with the boys. Irresponsible is Jamie, and she slapped Angelina, and Josh pulls her off of Angelina and says it's not her fault, it was an accident. Danielle is hysterical, and her newly fiancé Jerry Michaels has to console her, while Jacob and Stephanie look on, and they decided to leave the camp early to go back home. Stephanie says goodbye to Angelina, and they leave back to New Orleans, while Jerry takes Danielle and Angelina home. Chapter 2, Danielle's Sorrow. 11 months later, Angelina has decided to go live with her father in Los Angeles, because her mother blames her for Jamie's death. Jamie's death has taken a heavy toll on Danielle, and Joey has been there to help her through terrible journey, and he has been doing a terrific job. Joey owns a chain of hardware stores all over the South and was thinking about moving out of Louisiana, but Danielle is dead set on not moving because she wants to be able to see her son's grave. Danielle gets real upset when she finds out that her best friend Rachel and her husband Jameson has bought the camp firewood and decided to turn it into a bed and breakfast, but Danielle goes to the old owners to see why would sell the camp to be reopened. One of the owners, Nick Lane, tells it will not be a summer camp, and they do respect that your son has passed in the lake, but it was accident. It wasn't like anybody was murdered here, so please don't mess this up and go home. Danielle goes to see her best friend she has known all her life, Rachel, to reason with her not to open her business, and Rachel has sympathy for Danielle, but this is only land perfect for her bed and breakfast, and she tells don't ruin 23 years of friendship over this. Danielle leaves upset and thinks about what Nick said about it was an accident and wasn't anyone was murdered there, and she starts drinking heavily, and Joey consoles her with wit and humor, and it works, and he seduces her, and they kiss, and they started to undress, and they started to make love, and sunrises, and Danielle wakes up and walks to the mirror, and she sees herself naked in the mirror. Then she sees her life flashes in front her eyes of killing the people inside the bed and breakfast, and Rachel and Jameson dead, and she washes her face, and she gets back into bed with Joey, but it's her dead son Elle in bed with her, and she wakes up screaming Jamie. The bed and breakfast is booming. A lot of people are in town for a concert, and Joey is out of town on business. He really didn't want to leave her all by herself, but she was insisted for him to leave. She kissed him goodbye. Danielle is putting a plan together to destroy the bed and breakfast. Famous musicians Connor Bell and his wife Lucille shows up at the bed and breakfast, and they found it full up, so they decided to lay down by the lake, and it's look very good under a full moon. Danielle is watching over the bed and breakfast like a hawk, and she sees Rachel and Jameson sitting on the steps drinking wine. Rachel is happy that everything is working out with this bed and breakfast, and she is a little disappointed with how Danielle is taking this, and it's ruined her celebration, and Rachel decides to go to Danielle's house to see how she is. Danielle just got in the house and changes into a nightgown, and she opens the door. It's Rachel who has a bottle of wine, and she wants to have a drink with Danielle, and she invites her in, and they starts talking about their childhood together, and talks about their exes, and Danielle remembers how her life was before she had kids, and how much she used to be, and she realized she hasn't talked to her daughter in 10 months. Rachel invited Danielle and Joey for a future dinner, and she enjoyed the talk. Danielle realizes that she is on the edge of losing her way, and dreaming of killing people is not normal, so she decides to see a shrink in town, Donovan England, who is an expert in grief counseling. She starts seeing, and she starts telling her about her thoughts she'd been having and about the dreams she'd been having about her dead son. Joey returns home from his trip, and Danielle welcomes him back, and she tells him that she has been seeing a therapist, and he tells that is wonderful. Danielle and Joey have dinner with Rachel and Jameson and Connor and his wife Lucille, a nice dinner party. This concert is lasting an extra week. Connor and Lucille are just in town due to their son is lead singer in the band called The Cowards. They have a wonderful time. They spent their time talking about music and kids, and Danielle handles the conversation well, and when she gets home she decides to call her daughter Angelina, but Franklin he answers the phone, and is shocked to hear Danielle, who pleads with him to let her talk with her daughter, and Franklin hangs up the phone. Joey calls Franklin, and Franklin answers, and Joey says, "Hey yuppie motherfucker, if you don't put Angelina on the fucking motherfucking phone to talk to her fucking mother, I will get on a plane and come to Los Angeles and come all the way to 3612 Mulberry Street, kick down your fucking door and beat the ever-living shit out of yuppie motherfucking ass. I fuck you up." Franklin calls to Angelina, and Joe Wyas hands Danielle the phone, and she kisses him. Joey walks out the room. Angelina gets on the phone and says hi mom, and Danielle says she is so sorry, I miss you, I shouldn't have never put that burden on you. Angelina has been waiting on those words for a long time, and Angelina wants Comey back. Comey, she doesn't like Franklin's new wife Daphne, who try into hard to be my best friend. Danielle says, I am coming for you baby girl. Joey had a big deal in LA, so he decided to take Danielle to LA to get Angelina, but while Danielle is in LA, she fell in love with it and tells she wants to move here, and Joey has decided to move to LA and sell his business, and bought the biggest house in the city. Danielle said a proper goodbye to her little boy Jamie before leaving. Danielle, Joey and Angelina are living good in LA. Chapter 3. Unfinished business. Jamie Dawson drowned at Lake Camp Redwood at age 13. Now it is 10 years later, 2013. His mother Danielle and big sister Angelina are living in Los Angeles. Angelina is now 28 years old and is a police officer with the LAPD, but is undercover trying to bring the crime syndicate called the Winner's Circle, but anyway, in Redwood, Louisiana, on a dark and stormy night, while a biker gang having a party in the graveyard, and so happen they are partying on the grave of Jamie Dawson, who would have been 23 years old now. Two of the guys start to have a bloody brawl when one found out he was sleeping with his girl, and one of the guys is beaten to death on Jamie's grave. All of his blood drips down into Jamie's rotten casket and his body is filled up blood, and the biker gang leaves, and the caretaker wakes up and is walking through the graveyard and sees that Jamie's grave is vandalized, and he sees that dead biker, and he pulls out his cell phone to call the cops, and something grabs the biker's body from the grave, and Jamie, who's a skeleton, takes the skin off of the dead biker and put it on his body. The blood had woken him and comes out the grave. And caretaker dies from shock, and Jamie was in purgatory all these years as a 13-year-old kid with unfinished business to find his killer Jacob Miller, but through the blood of this biker, and you know in the blood it's a person life force, so the biker life force went to him and he has his memories, and so happened this biker is the same age he was, so it was perfect. The first thing he wants to do is eat his favorite meal, and he gets on the biker's bike and he goes to closest diner to get his favorite meal, French toast and pork chop and fries, and he sits down and enjoy his meal. Jamie is a new man and is not artistic anymore. While sitting at the dinner he remembers his childhood and his mother and sister and misses them. Jamie wants to track down the bikers who woke him up, and he uses the bikers' memories to track down the bikers, but it takes him to their headquarters, Baton Rouge. The biker gang is called the Ragers, and they live deep in the bayou. Jamie waits until nightfall and invade the clubhouse, which is 100 strong bikers. They're here for major play, but Jamie used his newfound skills to track the bikers who was at the graveyard that night and sniff them out. There were 16 bikers including the VP that killed the biker and 10 old ladies, and Jamie plans to kill them all. Jamie has nothing but vengeance on his mind. He was stuck in purgatory where he met a gorgeous soul, and he wasn't so lonely there, he was happy, but now he is awake and has a life force of a vengeful biker in his blood, and with his own vengeance of who killed him, Jamie sneaks around the clubhouse and starts to killing off the 16 bikers, including some the old ladies, but some of them weren't there. But when the president of the gang named Ramos find out they've been hit and look on the hidden camera footage, and they put a bounty on Jamie's head, and now Jamie has to fight his way out of Baton Rouge. Jamie's mind is slowly becoming this biker Jeffrey Douglas Cooper, aka J.D. for short, and he has inherited his rage and technique and knowledge for killing, but what the bikers don't know is J.D. is already dead, so you can kill what already dead, but J.D. is in battle on the road out of Baton Rouge. J.D. leaves a handful bodies in his wake, and this enraged Ramos to call more men and firepower. J.D. has an admirer, the VP old lady who has been sleeping with J.D. the whole time, Marcella, who is following J.D. around, and she knows he is different, and she wasn't there when he died, and she is not on his hit. All J.D. wants to do get the man who killed him, Jacob Miller, then he can be laid to rest. J.D. thoughts are changing. Jamie focuses, which is going with the desire to be the president of the Ragers. Marcella and J.D. are stationed a run-down motel, and a terrible storm has come to Louisiana where Marcella is trying to rekindle her love with J.D. and they started to have slow sex in the motel, and gets intense real quick when Jamie minds is fully gone and J.D. takes over. The Ragers are near and J.D. gets ready for a fight. The Ragers called J.D. out in the middle of the motel, and J.D. goes on full attack mode when he goes up against the Ragers, and Marcella, armed with a sawed-off shotgun bloodbath, ensures collateral damage is everywhere. Even sheriff deputies get mowed down by the Ragers, who are 50 strong. J.D. and Marcella make a run for it through the woods behind the motel. Bodies are dropping everywhere. All the sheriff deputies has been massacred, and half of the Ragers are re-DAD, and handful of them lead by Ramos follows J.D. and Marcella, who finds an abandoned building that was once used as a meth lab, and J.D. decides to make a last stand, and he tells Marcella to run and get away from here, and Marcella listens to J.D. and hands the sword off to him. She says she meet him at the gas station. It's nightfall and J.D. versus Ramos and 18 Ragers, and he turns out the power and the warehouse, and he finds a sharp pole, and he starts taking them out one by one in the dark, and pull out the sword off and kill them and run of bullets, and it's just him and Ramos, and he pulls out a weed whacker and attacks Ramos and takes off his faces and used the weed whacker and grind his face to nothing, and J.D. is badly wounded and sit down, and J.D. dies, and Jamie get his mindset back, but he learns so much from J.D. and he wants to become him completely, but he has unfinished business with Jacob. J.D. goes to gas station and pick up Marcella on a motorcycle dressed in a red leather jacket wearing sunglasses, and he tells Marcella let's go, and she gets on the back of the motorcycle and rides off in the sunset, and he doesn't care now where his sister, or his mother or Jacob, that he just explore the world until he find him, and on the road he tells Marcella who it really is and who is this Jacob he got to killed. So he can move on. Chapter 4. A Personal Hell. After the events after Jamie Dawson's death, Jacob and Stephanie finish high school as homecoming king and queen. Jacob decides to join the Marines, and he has knocked up Stephanie while he was on leave. Jacob suffers from nightmares of an unknown burnt figure man telling him to kill, and he using the war to getting the killing out of his system, and soon the burnt figure man is going after killing for 5 years as Marine, and rage dies away, but the rage is replaced by guilt of drowning Jamie, and his dreams are about Jamie coming to kill him. Jacob leaves the Marines and takes his wife Stephanie to live in Wichita, Texas, where his best friend Troy getting him a job with manufacturing company, which he worked there for a little while. Then he enrolled as a sheriff deputy, and he does such a good job. When the sheriff retires, Jacob becomes the sheriff, and his wife is worshipped by this town. Now April 29, 2013. Later, there has been a few unsolved murders all over Wichita and surrounding young women and men have placed in fields. Abandoned buildings, all looking like ritual-style killings, and the FBI has sent their best serial killer chaser named William Hill, who goes Billy when he around friends who had psychological problems as child when he witnessed his family brutally murdered by a teenage psychopath named Christian Craven, also known as the Torturer, because he loves torturing his victims, and he was never caught. Billy was sent to a children's hospital where he learned how to control his problems and his fear, and later he made friends with a girl named Jamie, which was targeted by Killer Uncle, which Billy was in more need of help, and he was finally moved to Solon Springs, Wisconsin to be raised by his dad's young sister Natalie, who raised him like he was her son along with her daughter Rose, who is 13 years old at the time. Billy went and joined the army and became part of Special Forces, and he goes to Quantico. He graduates at the top of his class and joins the FBI. Makes his name known by hunting terrorists and now hunts serial killers. And he is considered an outlaw. He doesn't follow the rules. He has killed most all he hunted, and to find the man who killed his mother and father. Billy comes into the Wichita Sheriff Department to introduces himself to Jacob, who walks him through all the case files. 17 murders, but some of these murders are similar to the murders in New Orleans in 2008. Jacob looks over case files from New Orleans, and it seems he had killed as a certain victim. He looking for these people have all been abused, molested, or traumatized in some way. The killer strikes again, leaving a teenage girl runaway, all chopped up inside a high school cafeteria layout on this display, and note to the FBI, Billy Hill and Sheriff Miller. The note says, "You never sees what in front of you, but when the knife comes in your back, you are surprised by who you see standing over your dying body, and you say with your dying breath, why?" And I said, why not? Billy realizes this killer wants them to find him. He never talked before, and Billy believes that he wants to be stopped, and it seems his murders get worse and worse with every kill. It seems that he wants everyone to know that he chooses how you die and how painful your death is going to be, but this will come to an end. I believe the killer has had enough, and he wants to be caught, or he wants to die. Either way, I will find him with your help. Jacob invites Billy to Sunday dinner with him and his wife and teenage daughter Angela. Stephanie cooked a wonderful meal: baked potatoes, pulled pork, caramel people. Billy has never had much of a family due to him being on the road all the time and hunting bad guys. Billy has devoted his life to FBI. I saw no family in his near future, but he enjoyed being a part of different errant people at lives. Billy leaves them and goes back to the office to get in the mind of this killer, but study all of the victims and locations where they was found dead. Billy starts visualizes the murders, and he trying to put the pieces together, and he thinks that what he missing is in New Orleans, and Billy heads to New Orleans. Jacob spent most of 2008 in Afghanistan, but he reckons that some of the victims in the New Orleans case are any of them kids he went to Camp Firewood with. Jacob recognizes some of the handwriting from the letters, and he also recognizes the paper that the notes was written on. Jacob is sitting at the dining room table and waiting on Stephanie, and she comes in the door and sees Jacob and says, "What you doing up this late, hon?" Jacob asks her, "What tea have you done, baby?" and pulls out her notepads that was in H's sewing room. Stephanie says, "Let's go outside, it's beautiful with this full moon." Jacob asks her, "What did you do, baby?" Stephanie says, "While you were away trying to fight off your demons, I was giving in to mind." Jacob said, "You killed Jack Castle, why?" Stephanie says, "He never liked you, and as you left he came sniffing trying to get me to leave you, and we had a fight in the kitchen, and I used a ice pick to defend myself. I poke out both of his eyes and jams the ice pick inside his throat. In that moment I felt something I never felt with killing him. I felt fulfiller and chop him up, throws his body in the woods, but I felt like I can do this and I want this feeling again. Then I kept on killing over again. The victims were easy to find. Some of them secretly loved me, like Josh was only with Angelina to get to me. That why I left him to die at the hands of coyotes. I watched them why they ate him alive." Flashbacks on display of all the murders that Stephanie has committed even while she was pregnant with Angela. Jacob looks at her with tears in her eyes. "Why would you do this, baby? Tell me why." Stephanie says, "We both have the darkness inside of us, although you be on teachy sound page since you killed Jamie." Jacob says, "I told you I regretted killing him. I didn't know he needed his sister to sing to him so he can escape his nightmares. I have had nightmares all my life, and that's so methying that I understand more than anything, and I love you more than anything in this world, so we got to get out of here. If I know about this, then Billy knows too, and he will be coming after you." Stephanie says, "Run for what you can't run for and your demons. I needed TOBS T-op and I think of killing our little girl. I can control myself like you do." Jacob says, "I can teach you how to control it, baby," and they go back inside the house to pack up a bag. "Angela to sleep over," says Stephanie. As Jacob and Stephanie reaches the front door, J.D. busted through the front door with Marcella behind him and aims the sawed-off shotgun at Jacob. Jacob says, "Who the hell are you?" J.D. says, "You drowned in that damn lake. Why, Jacob?" Jacob says, "You can't be Jamie. Jamie is dead. You aren't him." J.D. says, "I am him. Why did you drown me?" Jacob says, "I had this rage inside of me, but if I knew you had nightmares like I had, I wouldn't never give you that hard time. If I could go back time, I would have let you sue your sister, and you wouldn't be here now to kill me, but I deserve to die. I ask you to let my wife go, and I will die willing." Stephanie pulls out a razor and runs towards J.D. and Marcella tackles Stephanie, and Jacob dodges a shot from J.D. and spears J.D. over the couch. Stephanie slices off Marcella's ear with the razor, and Marcella mows the razor out Stephanie and starts beating her into the floor. J.D. throws Jacob in the kitchen, and Jacob grabs a hammer and swings at J.D. and it knocks him to the floor, and Jacob goes to get his gun. Stephanie goes for the sawed-off shotgun, and Marcella grabs the razor, and Stephanie turns around and Marcella slits Stephanie's neck and falls BK, and the gun goes off and blows Marcella's in half. They're both dead while Jacob and J.D. fight in the kitchen, and Jacob grabs his gun and he's shooting J.D. and he won't go down, and Jacob drops the gun and goes living room, and he breaks down and sees Stephanie's dead body and he holds her in his arms, and J.D. sees Marcella's dead body and drops to the floor, and they both holding their loved ones in their arms, and J.D., who is bleed all over the floor, get off the floor and says, "Get up, Jacob, it's Timmy to die." And Jacob kisses his wife and thinks of his daughter, and he is standing up and he says to J.D., "I am sorry for killing you, but the circumstances has changed. My wife is dead and my daughter is all alone, so I am not leaving my daughter alone in the world, so motherfucker bring it." And Jacob slides towards J.D. and they brawl in the living room, and the FBI shows up at Jacob's house. J.D. grabs the hammer off the floor and Jacob and the head, and while Jacob is beating in the head with a hammer, and Jacob grabs the sword off the floor and knocks the hammer out of his hand, and he blows J.D.'s head off his shoulders, and Billy and the FBI busting through the door, finding Jacob beaten up, face and blood all over the floor, and he left holding his wife. Jacob is putting in the back of ambulance and Billy checks out the crime scene. It's a blood why mess and tries to figure out what happened in this house, but Billy will never understand it. Jacob is sleeping and is expecting his daughter and pulls the curtains. It's J.D. and he grabs the .44 and jams it in his throat and pull out his throat and Jacob is dead. J.D. walks out and Billy walks past J.D. with Angela and Billy and Angela sees Jacob's dead body. Billy grabs Angela out the room and D gave her to a nurse and remember J.D. passing him and he goes after him but J.D. has left the hospital. Billy is still puzzled on who killed Jacob but it's an unsolved murder. Angela is sent to live with her grandmother Jessica. Chapter 5. Body count. 3 months later, after the deaths of Jacob and Stephanie Miller, Billy was transferred to the FBI division in Los Angeles to help stop a gang of teenagers who have been murdering people all over city. But as Billy deals with this case, he comes face to face with his childhood trauma when he and his best friend Jamie was being attacked by her uncle who was a serial killer and Billy's leg was ran over by a car. Later on, Jamie was killed by her uncle and Billy, once he was grown, vowed to find her uncle and kill him, but his whereabouts was unknown, but her uncle was a part of Cult of Thorn. One of the survivors of the latest attack reckons Ed, the one of killers, had a tattoo of Thorn on his wrist, meaning that Jamie's death is connected to these Claire's W. Hokul led Themsally S. the RIC of the Thorn. They believe they are immortal and unstoppable. Jessica Stone, a college professor, the survivor of OTT, who being protected by the FBI in a safe house, and Billy knows they will come after her because they can't leave anyone alive, and Billy has a arsenal in the trunk of his Porsche. What N01 knows about Billy that he is an exterminator of evil. He has killed so many terrorists and serial killers. He is ruthless and he been in L. For 3 months hunting OTT with the task force, but having this survivor changes everything. There are 130 killers a part of OTT spread out over the 50 states, and some hunts in packs and some hunts solo. All these killers got together on the dark web and founded each other. The founder of OTT is Stephen L. Hamilton, who was an orphan who was left at a firehouse and later raised by a rich family named the Hamiltons in Syracuse, New York. 13 years later, he kills his family and guests during Thanksgiving by poisoning the food, and Stephen disappeared with the Cult of Thorn, but he later killed them and took over as the head of the Thorn, which he founded a journal for with a list of kids who was blessed with the mark of Thorn. In the 3 months of tracking them down, Billy found all this evidence connected to the Thorn by using his connection in the CIA, who is a beautiful ex-girlfriend of his named Scarlett, who can find anything. But now you caught up. Billy is laying and waiting in his Porsche because he knows they will show up to finish her. A black van shows up at the safe house and open up 10 armed with axes and knives jump out and go straight to the safe house, and Billy gets out his car and loads up his shotgun, and as he goes towards the 10 masked members of OTT, a white Nissan Hitz pulls out in front of Billy with automated weapons. Billy jumps behind his Porsche and taking heavy fire from 4 members of OTT. The 10 members bust through the safe house and are attacking the FBI, who is overwhelmed by their presence. Jessica is hiding in the bathroom screaming. Billy shoots 1 member from underneath the car, blowing off his legs and then his head, kills the one behind him and rolls from the back of the car and kills the 3rd one, and the 4th one jump in the white Nissan and drives towards Billy, tries to run him over, and Billy unloads the shotgun at the windshield and tearing the 4th guy to pieces. One of the 10 masked members pull off his mask, blonde blue-eyed kid with scars all his face, and busts through the door and grabs Jessica by the neck and says, "Do you remember me, bitch?" Jessica screams, "No, Kyle." And Kyle says, "Look at me, this is the last fucking face you will see before me ending your fucking life," and Billy busting through the safe house, killing the 9 members of the OTT with 2 automatic weapons in his hand. Kyle comes out the bathroom holding a knife to Jessica's throat. Billy tell LSHN to drop the knife and Carl says damn I'm really hoping to ripping this bitch apart and really take my time with her, and Jessica stomps Carl's foot and he slices her face and Billy opens fire on him and he dive out a glass window and run into the LAPD and gives himself with a smile on his face. Jessica screaming in Billy's arms with her right cheek hanging off her face. Special Agent Ethan Rossi, Billy's boss, shows up, is upset how firings went down, 6 dead agents, 13 dead bodies on the streets of L.A. and Billy is at the hospital with Jessica as she getting sticks and he asks her about Kyle. She tells him Kyle England is her former student at her old university in Chicago whom she had a relationship, which she regretted he'd be no best with her, and when ended her relationship he came after her new boyfriend and killed him and made it like a suicide. I researched him, said Jessica. He killed his own sister at 7 years old by electrocuted her while she was taking a bath, they said was accident. At 14 years old his mother and father and the family dog were killed in a house fire and it was blamed on a serial arsonist. After reading all the news about I was in fear of my life, so I called the police and he found out and came after me and attacked me and I was fighting for my life and I grab a knife and slice up his face and lit him on fire. He was supposed to be in jail for attempt murder. Billy tells her not to worry. He going to get her out THR Cone try with help from an old buddy to protect her from Kyle and the rest of our OTT. Billy's friend Bruce Weston and his armed bodyguards show up to the hospital. Billy met Bruce Weston during covert mission in South Africa. Bruce is a wide-known arms dealer who helped Billy and his special forces take down a warlord who kidnapped the president and ended up saving Bruce's life, and which Bruce supplies Billy with high-tech weapons. But when Billy became a federal agent he had to cut ties with Bruce's guns, but kept the friend. But the only person you can trust to get a person safely out of the country on a private jet. Jessica meets Bruce and it's love at first sight. Billy was thinking maybe even after this, but Bruce will always be grateful for being introduced to his future. They get married 3 years from now. Billy shows up at the FBI office to be greeted angry by Agent Rossi and ask where he been, and he tells him he was at the hospital taking care of the witness, and Rossi says Kyle has not spoken and tells him he will only talk to you. Billy walks in the interrogation room and sits down and Billy says I am here, what the fuck do you want? Kyle sighting with a smile on his face and say I am really disappointed that I didn't get a chance to kill Jessica, but that will be another time, but that not important. Billy you been looking for the Cult of Thorn for years, all because of your old childhood friend Jamie who was killed by her, well just called him Uncle Mick. Billy is getting restless and says where is Stephen Hamilton, also help me God I am going to bash your fucking head through that glass fucking wall. Kyle laughs and says I will give you everything you want on a silver platter, but you're going to have to listen. Kyle starts back talking, let me clear up some things for things 4. It all starts with the death of your precious Jamie. She was kidnapped in 1989 where she'd been held captive by the Cult of Thorn until she was knocked up an unknown man, but everyone thought it was Uncle Mick, her own uncle. It would make sense that he want to kill his own niece, because maybe he didn't want anyone to know he was sexually attracted, which is why he killed his own sister and niece, but the real reason he told to kill his sisters. But he failed to kill one and this sister wasn't hiding from him, but the Cult of Thorn who wanted to mark her daughter, and Jamie would later have the urge, but she didn't, so she had to be killed. Uncle Mick was tasked to kill her, but Uncle Mick killed a lot of people just to get to her, and he was captured, and with the help of a few members of the Cult of Thorn, they took Jamie and Uncle Mick to the underground. One of the members was a man that you know, his name was Christian Craven. Billy is full of rage in his eyes, and he kicks his chair back. Whereas he and gets in Kyle's face, and Kyle says, do you know why I am telling you this? Jamie and Christian are the parents of Stephen Hamilton, who was born Stephen Lloyd. He was born October 30th, 1996, then Jamie died 2 hours later. Do you even know how your mom and dad were picked by Christian? Because your mom had a little secret. When she was raped when she was 16, she got pregnant and she sold the baby to wealthy family unknowingly sold the baby to a high member of the cult of Thorn, and that baby grew up to being a pissed off teenager named Christian Craven who tortured and killed entire family. But if he wanted to be stronger and faster like Uncle Mick, he will have to kill a blood relative on Halloween night, which Samhain for the cult of Thorn. He made a choice to kill your mother instead of you until he wants to be more powerful. The more people you kill, the more powerful and evil you become. And Billy, you killed a lot of people, but you are not member of the Thorn. Billy says, where is Christian, where is Stephen? Tell me motherfucker, and pull out the chair and puts under the doorknob and slams Carl to the wall. Agent Rossi and other agents trying to get in the room, and Billy pulls out his gun and points at Kyle and says, I'm going to give you to the count of 3 to tell me what I know or I am going to blow your fucking brains. Come on, test me motherfucker. Counts to 1. Kyle says 2. This is really going to be fun watching you beg for your fucking life, and cocks the gun and the lights go out in the building and Kyle says 3 and Billy fires the gun and Kyle knocks the gun from his head and he breaks his handcuffs and a Ganaba, OTT led by a man with long blonde hair wearing a leather jacket and carrying automatic weapons and killing all the agents in their path while Billy and Kyle are fighting in the interrogation room. Kyle slams Billy through the tablet and Kyle grabs Billy's gun and shoots out the glass wall and jumps right through it. Billy opens the door and sees his fellow agents dying all over the place, and Billy kills one of the members of OTT and takes his automatic weapon and ammo and opening fire on a horde of OTT coming through the hallway, bullets and blood everywhere. Billy sees the man with long blonde hair and saying, why are you Muse? TB Steven, and Steven says, you must be Uncle Billy. My father says hello and puts out a knives at NDTH owls at Billy. One of the knives get him in the arm. Steven and 6 of OTT are in chasing of Billy, and Billy runs through a hail of bullets and Steven's knives and jumps out the second-story window and lands on top of a car, and he gets in and hot-wired it, and Steven is getting close to the car and pulls out a sword to take off Billy's head, and Billy in the nick of time drives off like a bat out of hell to a motel outside of Los Angeles. Billy is overwhelmed by what just happened at the FBI headquarters. He is taking care of his wounds. He has bad cuts all over him and take off his shirt and he pours vodka on his wounds and he is drinking, and he calls Scarlett and tells her he is all alone in a hotel, barely escaped with his life, and he don't know WWH it going to happen, and he is outnumbered and against all odds, and he wants her to know that he shouldn't let things get bad between us, and Scarlett reassures him that he is a bad motherfucker, and she says, I am going to send you a care package for him. And 2 days later, Billy, healing from his wounds, wakes up to knock at the door, and it's Bruce. Scarlett called Bruce and told him the situation with the OTT and with Billy. Bruce shows to talk to him. Bruce tells him, yeah, I know you are shocked that I am here, and it's break chaos my heart that you think you don't have a friend in this world. I know you didn't pest at OUT as friends until you saved my life. Billy said, you said we were even after I asked you for the favor. Bruce said, you are more than my lifesaver, you my friend, and more than that now since you brought Jessica in my life. When I was going to leave her in Brazil at the Copacabana Palace, but she didn't want to leave her alone, so I stayed with her, and me and her got real close, and I never felt this way about a woman in a long time, and I spent a day with her, and we both fell in love, and with that brilliant climate, she felt relieved until she went to sleep having these terrible nightmares about that guy Carl, and she will never be safe until the fucker is 6 feet under, so I am here to help take down these fuckers either with your help or without. Billy says, what, just you and me? Bruce says, I am not the same pussy from that shit show from 2009, buddy. I have fucking evolved to a real badass motherfucker just like you. I am 2013 Bruce fucking Weston. Of course I had to up my fighting and shooting techniques with a run-in with a rogue M16 agent, which is another fucking story. Bruce goes outside to his SUV and pulls out a crate and brings it to the hotel and opens it. It's a CR8 full of high-tech weapons, Generades, tactical vest, WHICH, knife and D-ball let-proof, and Billy and Bruce loads up weapons and tactical gear on. Bruce says Scarlett used the cameras around the FBI at headquarters and the city to find Kyle and rest of them. They are in a closed-down nightclub in downtown L.A. Billy and Bruce get in the SUV and drives back to L.A. 2 hours later they reach the nightclub and they see 6 members of R.O.T. and Kyle getting out of a van with some Potion victims all tied up taking inside the club, and Billy and Bruce get out the club and loads up their guns and waits till Kyle's goes inside the nightclub and 2 members guard the entrance and Billy kills the both of them. Bruce enters the club and Billy comes behind him. Loud music and people screaming and moaning playing inside the abandoned nightclub, which has been marked with symbols of the thorn, and the entire club is full with 50 members of R.O.T. who are around the room having an orgy of murdering and torturing men and women who they thought was coming to an underground rave, and blood is pouring all over the floor and Billy and Bruce are disgusted and with horrific looks on their faces, and Billy looks to the stage and sees Steven sitting on his throne with blood all over him and dead girls at his feet, and Kyle brings him more innocent girls to kill. Billy says he had enough of this shit. He opens fire in the nightclub and one of members comes at Bruce with a chainsaw and Bruce blows him away. Billy and Bruce split up through the club and killing anyone that comes in the way. Billy sees Kyle and points and tells Bruce, "That's Kyler, I get the motherfucker," on the stage. A big guy jumps out the shadows and knocks Billy's weapon out his hand with a fire axe, and Billy pulls out a combat knife and is cycling up the big guy, and the big guy swings the axe at Billy and he dodges it and jams the knife in the big guy's throat and rips off his head. Billy grabs the axe and tears it at the next guy. The rest of R.O.T. are arming themselves and coming firing their weapons, and Billy picks up a gun and loads up explosive rounds in the magazines and Billy's eyes let there be light in the darkness, and Billy opens fire on the R.O.T. and blowing them up. Meanwhile Bruce is mowing down R.O.T. while chasing down Kyle in the back of the club. Bruce drops the gun out of ammo and yells, "Kyler." Kyle says, "You know me," and Bruce says, "Jessica says for you to die screaming, you little bitch." And Kyle says, "It is you that will die screaming," and Kyle pulls out a hunting knife and comes at Bruce, and Bruce pulls out his combat knife and they are having a knife fight in the dark alley behind the club, and they both are slicing each other up. Billy has killed all the R.O.T. and looking dead in the eyes of Steven, who hasn't the feet-high throne, and Steven drops from the stage and Billy and Steven starts fighting with each other, and Steven throws Billy across the room and Billy springs back with a punch and it has not effect on Steven, and Steven says, "I love pain." Bruce has stabbed Kyle in his right leg and Kyle slices Bruce's chest and kicks him away with his left leg, and Bruce spears him to the brick wall and hitting Kyle directly in his nose, complete while breaking G's nose, and Kyle stabs Bruce in the gut. Steven punched Billy 3 times to the face and 4th punch knocks him to the floor, and Steven turns towards his throne and sees his sword and goes to grab it, and Billy gets up and attacks Steven from behind and grabs a power cord and wraps it around his neck and pulling the Rio towards them as they fight. Bruce's look at Kyle and the blade which is stuck in the vest, and Bruce looks at Kyle and says, "The why I always bring protection." Bruce takes his knife and jams in Kyle's ribcage, and Bruce takes the knife out his vest and Kyle falls to the floor, and Bruce takes Kyle's knife and says, "This for Jessica Jarmaine too, is he RT?" and pulls out his phone and takes a picture of Kyle's dead body. Billy is slams to the floor by Steven, which knocks the wind out of him, and sees the fire axe in the man he killed, and Steven goes to his sword and pulls out his sword and comes towards Steven. "I wish we would been a happy family. I know you were real close with my mom, but she was weak just like you, and when you see her in hell tell her I hope she very happy why." And Steven goes for Billy's head and Billy dodges the sword, and Billy grabs the fire axe and hits Steven's directly in the head. And Steven still's alive with fire axe in his head and swings the sword at Billy as the blood pouring in his eyes, and Billy rolls and pulls out the fire axe out of his head, and Steven slices the sword at him, cutting the axe in half, and Billy says, "Damn." Steven says, "I am the Thor, and I am forever," and Bruce comes in the room and Steven says, "Killing you uncle will be the ultimate sacrifice and he raises the sword at Billy, and Bruce pulls out a Jean Raid and tears at Steven, and Billy runs and dives. Steven is blown away. Explosion. Bruce grabs Billy and runs out the burning nightclub, and the LAPD is en route. Bruce and Billy get in the SUV and drives away. Bruce says, "Now you owe me." Billy is thinking that Stephen isn't dead as Bruce is driving towards his jet. Bruce says, "You need a vacation, my friend." Billy says, "I got one more person. I need to find the man that killed my mother and father before I can have a so-called vacation." Bruce says, "Hey, live a little and fight another day." Bruce gets out the SUV and tells Billy to get out the SUV. "Somebody is here to see you," and Billy gets out of the SUV and goes on the jet, and he sees Scarlett and he sits down next to her, and Bruce closes the jet door and tells the pilot, "Back to Brazil to see my sweet Jessica." As Bruce, Billy and Scarlett flies to Braz, Illinois for a little vacation. LAPD and fire department are looking through the nightclub, and they found a survivor badly burned with thorn symbols marking all over his body, and they take him to the hospital later. Night badly injured Agent Rossi and a few agents are guarding the survivor because he is either a witness or a suspect. While that's going on, the power goes out in the hospital. A man comes through to the hospital wearing a possessed pumpkin mask with a large blade, and 3 men behind armed with knives in the lobby with hospital staff staring at them. Blood, screams, body dropping everywhere. The FBI agents leaving from the room to see what's going on, and they getting massacred by the possessed pumpkin mask man. Agent Rossi realizes he is alone in the room, and Stephen wakes up out the hospital and slow WLY walks toward Agent Rossi from behind as the possessed pumpkin mask man walks in front of him, and Agent Rossi pulls out his gun and Stephen stabs Agent Rossi in the throat, and Agent Rossi is being stabbed to death by Stephen, and the possessed pumpkin mask man pulls off his mask and it's revealed it's Stephen's father, Christian, and they walks out the hospital. Bodies are everywhere, everyone is dead. The 3 members of ROTT get in the van with Stephen and Christian and drives off. Christian says, "Billy WILL PARY and due time when you fooled HUND, I found a way to make pay and beg to die. I found his aunt Natalie and his cousin Rose," and Stephen smiles. Chapter 6, Superior. It is now October 27th in the small town of Superior, Wisconsin, where Natalie and Rose moved to a few years ago for Rose to attend college at the University of Wisconsin-Superior, but now Rose has been married to a Special Forces named Kevin Dawson, who was trained in the martial arts as a kid and also trained as a boxer. Didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, so he joined the army, then joined the Special Forces where he met Billy, and when Billy left after a bad mission, which was the 2008 incident with Bruce and Kevin, got badly injured, and he stayed home for a while and fell in love with Billy's cousin Rose, and later they got married. Then Kevin decided to join a Macarius unit CAL, the outfit to help out Rose's college student loans, but Rose got tired of Kevin always being away, and in 2011 Rose gave him a choice to stay home or she leaving, so he quit the outfit. Kevin was branded a hero by town mayor, his father Casper Dawson, the town sheriff, who getting ready to retire, and he has been the sheriff of this town for 20 years, and the mayor wants his son to be the next sheriff. Matthew is working martial arts at the Strength and Honor gym. Rose is the editor of Superior Telegram, and Natalie works at Flory SD shop. Kay Evans' little sister Rebecca is 17 years old, high school student at Superior High School. Everything in this town is pretty much routine and boring. Kevin and Rose are hosting a Sunday dinner party with his sister Rebecca with her boyfriend Brett, Natalie and her beau Frank, who works at the diner, and they had moved in together. Kevin's father Casper shows up to dinner with Mayor Holly Parker, who is his girlfriend. The dinner is fun, but old conversations bring a wedge between Casper and Kevin. The party ends at 10 p.m. Kevin and Rose are in their room making passionate love. They are kissing and their bodies are in sync with each other, making love in the dark with the full moon light shining through the window. He sucks on her breasts and she rolls on the top on him, and her red hair glares from the moonlight, and she kisses him and looks in his eyes as they both come together, and she lays on top of him. Kevin and Dean was his lives after Kevin left the outfit. It's becoming most like a sitcom like Mad About You or Everybody Love Raymond. Kevin is a pillar of the community SPKL Live when he teaching kids and teenagers martial arts and discipline and he is a wonderful teacher and he has trained some new fighters who joined the MMA and UFC. The daily routine during week training the kids and teenagers and be home when Rose is home and spend time with her. Rebecca is a high school cheerleader who darty in Brett T. University football L team quarterback and team captain. Rebecca's best friends are Wendy, who is a book-smart wise ass, also a raging party girl, Kristen, who has known Rebecca since grade school and is jealous of her relationship with Brett and has slept with him on several occasions, and Kristen is also class president and is Mayor Holly Parker's daughter. Misty, a troublemaker who always carries switchblade to fend off weirdos and also ready to fight anybody and has been training with Kevin to be the next Ronda Rousey. And they all have plans to go to the Halloween party at Kristen's house. Like I said, T is to WN is routine. October 29th. A 3 black vans have just came in Superior city limits 25R. OT strong and a black Ford F-150 truck, which has Christian and Stephen in it, and they pulled up to a motel and bite out, and comes out the driver's side of the first van is a blonde woman named Sarah Wilcox, who was not born into the ROTT, but she committed a sacrifice in order to join the ROTT. Sarah is a witch who been heartbroken ever since her long-term boyfriend D. Charles Carlson has left her for another woman. A year ago, ALAPDA detective Jamie's big sister Angelina, and she was recruited by Stephen Monks before his run-in with Billy. Sarah has hidden her witchcraft from the ROTT. She mostly just gather information and routines of the victims that they intend to murder. Sarah is shadowing Rebecca and her friends shopping at the mall, getting ready for the Halloween party Thursday night. The others are OTT shadowing different people in the town to determine to kill Halloween Eve and Halloween night. Sarah is good at blending in towns, and Sarah has killed innocents, and when she was with her ex Charlie, Sarah was an assassin for the Winner's Circle, a huge crime syndicate in Los Angeles, but she has known Charlie since he was a kid but was reintroduced to him when the Winner's Circle went over a huge chance in leadership. Sarah's job within the ROTT is surveillance and information. This how the cult of Thorn worked for centuries. They give the person who hunted the direction to go. The shape was not given direction by no one, but Christian was the first major Thorn killer and was a team player, but once his son Stephen was born he decided to kill of the Thorn that the shape didn't kill on that Halloween night, and Christian did. Christian kills and tortures families until he found his son, who killed his entire adopted family. He rebooted the cult of Thorn and to become the Rising of the Thorn, which he appointed as his son as the king of it. Now Sarah left shadowing Rebecca and her friends, and now she outside of Rosie's job at Superior Telegram and follows her to her mother Natalie's new place with her boyfriend Frank. Rose has a surprise for her mom, that she is pregnant and she hasn't to LD Cuvier yet. Kevin is finishing up his training sessions with his students, and when he packs everything up, he feels like someone is watching him, and there is a group of ROTT sitting in a black van outside Kevin's gym. Kevin got an old feeling from his Merc days that's telling him to stay alert, and he sees the black van and stares at it, and they drive off. Kevin arrives at home thinking about that black van, and Kevin flashbacks to his last mission in Mexico, taking down a Mexican cartel with the outfit and the gunfights he has survived. Kevin knows something is brewing, and he goes downstairs to the basement and go to his punching bag, and while he hitting that punching bag and he remembering all the fights he has won, the urge to be that man he was before is coming back, the fighter, the cold-blooded assassin that he once was, all because he felt that black van watching, and he knows it was it deja vu to him, and with one last hit and he knocked the punching bag off the hook. And he turned his head with sweat on his head and blood on his hands, and it's Rose standing on the stairs and says she is pregnant. All of our OTT including Sarah, Stephen, and Christian all having to meet and coordinate how everything going to go down and who killing who, and they hoping Billy going to show so they can kill him. They still don't know WWH he is. October 30th, Halloween Eve, Stephen's birthday. The time is 11:15 p.m., the exact time he was born. Stephen is at the first victim's house with the pumpkin possum Ed mask and break in the house, and Frank comes out the bedroom with a baseball bat, and Stephen pulls out knife and slices Frank's ear and stabs him in the back and takes the knife and slices his face off, and Frank screaming, and Natalie grabs her pink gun out of her purse and goes in the living and seeing Stephen slicing Frank's face off. Natalie aims the gun at Stephen and she screams, "Get off of him," and Stephen get up and walks towards Natalie, and Christian is standing behind Natalie with Frank's baseball bat and he breaks Natalie's right leg and she screams, and Christian drags her into the bedroom and close the door. Frank with no face trying to crawl to the front dude, and Ste then turn him over and starts carving a holes in his body, and Frank screaming G, and Ste then cuts out Frank's tooth. Christian ties Natalie to the bed and he look into her face, and Natalie crying, "I remember you, you killed my brother." Christian says, "I killed your brother and his wife, and I will kill your precious Rose and your nephew, and I am going to kill you slowly, very slowly," and she screams, "Fuck you," and grabs a box cutter, "and I am going to leave a message for Billy, do you mind?" and he starts slicing up Natalie and she screams, and Christian says, "Yes baby, I love it, scream for me," and tearing off pieces of her breasts, and then he slices her neck and he eats her flesh and drinking the blood from her neck. An hour later, Christian walks out the bedroom and he sees Stephen sighting Don Pla with Frank's bones, and they put Frank mangled body next to Natalie's naked dead body, and they burn down Natalie's and Frank house, and the Y drive off back to hotel. The ROTT coordinated murders all over Superior at 12 a.m. exactly. Sarah is still at the motel looking over pictures of Rebecca and Rose, and she is having second thoughts about killing these women. She has enough killing, and she takes her bag and steals a car and leaves town. The murders are covered up as a fire to throw off the suspension until the end of Halloween night. Casper is called out his sleep by the mayor to tell them about the fires at different locations, 8 different houses. Deputy Harry Sullivan and Deputy Mason James shows up Rose and Kevin's house at 3 a.m. to tell them about Natalie and Frank's deaths, and Rose breaks down and starts crying in Kevin's arms. Harry says 7 more houses have been burned down and it's like arson. Hours go by, Rose cried herself to sleep, and Kevin is up in the basement and calling Billy's cell to tell him about Natalie's death. Billy is still in Brazil with Scarlett, who is now his wife. Billy answers the phone while on the beach, and Kevin tells him about Natalie's death and her boyfriend, and Billy is saddened by the news, but Kevin goes to tell him that more people were killed, and Billy thinks of the day is Steven's birthday. Why? Billy tells him as he is in and why strange cars are out town. Kevin says a black van was watching him, and Billy says it's the ROTT. They came to Superior to start their Halloween murder spree, and Kevin says why here? Billy says it's because of me, and Billy tells Kevin everything that happened a months ago. Billy says he is in Brazil and he is on his way. It will be 9 hours before he arrives at ND. He tells him to warn everybody. Billy tells Bruce he needs to use the jet and tell him why, and he says he be back. Kevin wakes up Rose and tells her what going on and what Billy told her. Sheriff Dawson and Mayor Parker are having a town meeting to calm down the residents of Superior, and Kevin and Rose show up at the town meeting to talk to Casper and Holly about what Billy has told them. Mayor Parker has issued a lockdown for the city at 5 p.m. Casper has called Rebecca to tell her to stay home, and she must stay home tonight, and she says yes, but she calls Brett to come over. The Halloween party and activities have been cancelled. Anyone caught after dark that is not law enforcement will be arrested and fined. It's 6 p.m. It's cold and raining. The deputies are patrolling the streets. Kevin and Rose are in their home with deputies in the driveway. Rebecca and Brett are in her room as a squad car watching the house. Sheriff Dawson and Mayor Parker are at the sheriff station, and Billy is 3 hours away, but the rainstorm is delaying things. Chapter 7. The Halloween Night Massacre. It's a dark and stormy night outside the house of Hall White and Kristen Parker. Kristen has invited Wendy and Misty over her house so she wouldn't be alone, along with a few of Brett's fellow football players, Scott, a promising wide receiver who got a scholarship to Oregon State. Vic, defensive end, 43 tackles, 23 sacks, 13 interceptions, scholarship to the University of Alabama. And Corey, second-string quarterback and Wendy's boyfriend. They are having a little party with the mayor's security team. Watching the who Vic is looking at Misty. Tell her he is scared, and Vic starts talking to Misty about Stranger Things and tell her he is a Netflix junkie, and he starts talking to her about movies while Scott is trying to get in Kristen's pants and starts making out with her. Kristen tells Misty that she and Vic can use the guest room and her mom's room is off limits. Vic takes Misty to the guest room. Kristen tells Wendy to stay downstairs with Corey. Misty looking in her purse and pulls out her pink custom-made Smith & Wesson her dad gave her for her birthday, and Vic got scared and says, "Damn baby, I get it, no means no, you ain't got to rest who to bother." Misty puts her gun back in her purse and pulls off her pants and says, "Come get this pussy." Vic says, "Hell yeah." The next room, Kristen get naked in front of Corey and starts kissing on her breasts and throws her on the bed. Wendy is not ready for sex, but decides to give Scott a blowjob, but Wendy get horny and turns to sex fast. All the teenagers in Kristen are enjoying in sexual intercourse. Meanwhile, Sheriff Dawson and Rebecca's household, Brett decided cook dinner, two bone steaks and garlic bread and rice for the both of them, and turn on Netflix, and they are watching The Ranch and laughing their ass off. Rebecca's cell ringing. It's Kevin calling to check on her. He tried to get her to stay with them for the night, but Casper told him you will be okay at home and he would check on her, and to ease Kevin's mind she told her Brett is there taking care of her, but Kevin is still worried and Rose typing up this story on her laptop, while Kevin is sitting by the window and thinking that he should be out on the streets trying to prevent whatever happens. Rebecca goes upstairs to take a bath while Brett lights the fireplace. Christian shows up walking towards the deputies who are outside eating their dinner, and Christian pulls one of the deputies' head out the window and slices his throat. Another deputy goes for his gun, but his food on his lap, and Christian taunts the deputy and walks to the passenger door and grabs the deputy and slamming the door on the deputy's head over and over until he's dead, and walks to the back door of Rebecca's house and leaves the back door open. Music is playing loudly in the house while Rebecca is taking a nice bath. Brett is opening a bottle of wine in the kitchen, and Brett walks back in the living room, and Christian attacks Brett and slams him against the wall against the fireplace. Brett grabs a fire poker and Christian says, "Let's see what you got, Mr. Badass," and he is screaming out Rebecca's name over the music, and he swings at Christian, and Christian says, "Strike one, you have to do better than if you want live, Mr. Badass." Brett swings it again. "Strike two," says Christian, "one more strike and your ass is mine." Brett strikes at Christian, and Christian grabs it and says, and look into his eyes, and says, "Strike three," and jams the fire poker and Brett's eye and breaks Brett's right leg and slam him to the floor and drags him in the kitchen. Brett trying to fight back and kick him with his left leg, and he hopes towards a drawer and grabs a knife and tries to cut Christian, and Christian kicks Brett's broken leg and grabs his arms with the knife and knocks the knife and put Brett's hand in the garbage disposal and turn it on, and Brett is screaming and blood is splatting everywhere. Brett has passed out and Christian slaps him and says, "Don't pass out just yet." Christian looks around the kitchen and sees the oven and pulls out the cooking racks and jams Brett in the oven, but he won't fit, and he breaks his left leg and wedges a broom against the cabinet, and he turned the oven to boil, and Brett is screaming and roasting to death in the oven. Christian looking at the oven and pull out a cigarette and says, "Hey turkey, you got a lighter? Don't worry, I got one," and pull out his lighter and start smoking. Stephen walks through the back door with the possessed pumpkin mask on and sees Christian in the kitchen, and Christian says, "She is all yours, son, she upstairs." Christian opens the oven and Brett's body falls out the oven and walks into the living room and turns off the music, and he walks out the back door and closes it. Rebecca walks out the bathroom in a towel, and she sees possessed pumpkin mask wearing Stephen, and he chases her into her bedroom where he rips off her towel and stabs her all over her body with his special made blade that are Moki in big holes inside her body. She dies of a heart attack, and he continues to stab her while she is dead. Back at Kristen's house, Misty and Vic just got done having sex and Misty had exploded cum all over Vic and he had to jump in the shower. Misty lights a cigarette and turn on the TV and her favorite movie is playing on the TV, The Fast and the Furious. Meanwhile, Wendy and Corey are making out on the couch and Corey hears something in the kitchen and Wendy tells him to check it out. Corey goes in the kitchen and sees the ice maker spitting out ice and a masked man pops out behind the couch and puts a garrote around Wendy's neck and Corey hears Wendy struggles and he comes running out the kitchen and another mask knocks him to the floor and drags him to the fireplace and sticks Corey's head in the fireplace and it burns off Corey's face and Wendy's head is taken off by the garrote. A third masked man shows up with the second man behind him. Third man sees Misty on the bed and goes to the room and the second man goes into Kristen where Kristen being done doggy style by Scott. The third man surprised Misty and pulls out a razor and Misty goes for her purse and the man jumps in the bed with her and she pulls out her Smith & Wesson and he is surprised and she blows him away and he goes through the bathroom door where Vic's showering and gets startled. The second man sneaks up behind Scott and grabs him and slices his penis off while inside her and slits Scott and he drops to the floor. The second man goes for Kristen and the gun goes off in the next room and Kristen grabs a lamp and hits the second man and tries to leave the room. The second throws back on the bed. Misty and Vic goes to Kristen's room. Vic sees the first man coming up the stairs and Vic tackles the man downstairs. Misty busted in Kristen's room with gun drawn and the second man knocks the gun out Misty's hand. The second man knocks Misty down to the floor and Kristen screaming and Misty grabs her switchblade and stabs the man between his legs and he falls to the floor and grabs her gun and blows his brains out and blood splatter all over him. Vic has the first man in a choke hold and breaks his neck. Vic dusts himself off from three more. OTT shows up and Vic hypes himself and said, "I am baddest motherfucker on the planet, I am the rock in this bitch, bring it," and spears to them to the floor and Misty opens fire on the one left standing. Vic beats one of the men until his skull caved in. The other man gets up and attacks Vic with a razor and Misty can show it because she hit Vic, so she runs at the man using the fighting techniques that Kevin showed her. She sweeps the man's legs down and puts his arm in an armbar and breaks his arms, then chop to the throat, crushing his windpipe, and she puts in the man between her legs and breaks his neck. Misty uses her cell phone to call 911. Sheriff Dawson and the mayor are en route to the residence. Casper calls Kevin to check on Rebecca, who is 3 blocks down the street at their house. Kevin hangs up the phone and tells Rose that he will be right back. Kevin step outside and walk to the cop car watching the house to tell them to keep an eye on Rose, and he takes a walk down the street. A group of OTT comes out from the shadows and they see Kevin walking down the street and they goes towards the cop car and kill the 2 deputies and the OTT armed with knives busted down Rose and Kevin's door and Rose is shocked and screams and runs into basement. 7 of them entered the house wearing people they kill faces. A rental car shows up at the house and get out of the car. It's Billy and he sees the dead cops and he sees the house is broken into and Billy goes into and sees 3 of our OTT and he goes at them with MMA fighting techniques and he breaks one of their necks and bashed his fist right in the second one face and pushes his neck deep in his skull and kill him, and the third one comes at him with a knife and Billy dodges him and grabs a picture off the wall and break it and takes the broken glass and slices up the third guy and jams the glass inside his eyes, tearing out his eyes. The rest of the OTT trying to break into the basement to get to Rose, but they hear their men screaming and they leave the basement door alone and they come upstairs and they see Billy and Billy drops the third guy and Billy sees the 4 of them and they go at him. Rose is in the basement and is scared and all she's hearing is men screaming and things get broken. Minutes later Billy knocks on the door and tells her to open the door and she says, "Who is it?" and Billy says, "It's me, your cousin Billy boy," and Rose opens the door and is glad it's him and Billy says, "Where is Kevin?" Rose says he went to check on Rebecca. Kevin gets to the house and he notices the door is open and he goes in and smells a bad smell and he walks into the kitchen and he sees a burned dead body on the floor and he looks upstairs and runs to Rebecca's room and opens the door and he finds her body parts all over the room and he drops to his knees crying his life with his little sister flashes in his eyes. He sees her at Christmas when they was kids and her face at his mom's funeral. Kevin crying and having a fit. Casper shows up at the house and he sees Kevin covering up the body parts and Casper loses his mind and Kevin has to hold him and take him out the house and Casper is completely broken down screaming outside the house and he pulls his gun and he tells Kevin, "You find these sons of bitches that did this to your baby sister, you hear me, you fucking kill them," and blows his brains out and Rose and Billy comes down the street. Kevin has tears in his eyes and blood on him and he walks towards and punches Billy out. Kevin just explains, "My father just killed himself because those fucking people that came for you just killed fucking Masasa, my baby sister." Rose says, "Oh my god." Billy says, "I am sorry." Kevin says, "I don't want your fucking sorry. I want these motherfuckers." Billy says, "They will come for Rose, Christian and Steven. We got to find a place away from the cops." Kevin says, "I got to put her in a safe place." "There is no safe place, they will kill anyone to get to her." Kevin says, "We can go to my gym." Billy, Kevin, Rose show up at Kevin's gym and Kevin goes into his office and opens his wall safe and pulls out guns, knives and tactical gears and they suited UP and Kevin gives Rose a shotgun and tells to stay in this office and he kisses her. Billy is looking out the window and he sees two white vans show up and a cop car and get out is Deputy Mason who has been working a OTT the whole time and Steven shows up wearing Rebecca's face. Billy says, "I know who killed your sister," and Kevin looks out and sees Steven and Kevin says, "He is mine." Christian has a shotgun and Tenor, OTT are walking into the gym and gunfire starts and New Dawn fades playing by Moby on the radio while the gunfight is starting. Bullets hitting flesh, 3 of the ROTT as being shot up by Billy. Kevin attacks Deputy Mason and blows his head off. Steven drives the van into the gym killing one of his own men. Steven gets out of the van and sees Rose looking through the office and he goes towards it and Kevin tries to G at her but get held up by 3 members of the ROTT and Kevin pulls out his knife and slices them up. Billy is fighting 3 of the last members of the ROTT and he kills them and quickly. Steven breaks into the office and attacks Rose and Kevin spears Steven through the office window. Steven pulls out his sword and Kevin says, "Come on motherfucker," and Kevin dodges S-word and Kevin uses his martial arts skills to fight Steven and Kevin grabs Steven's sword and toss him to the floor and put his Rode's hand in an armbar and attempts to break his hand. Christian is shooting at Billy with his shotgun and says, "I never wanted to kill you, brother. I thought maybe why you wanted to join the family." Billy grabs a weight and knocks the shotgun out of Christian's hand. Billy and Christian are brawling in the weight room. Kevin grabs the sword and throws it across the room and jumps out and Steven pulls off the flesh mask and it shows his burned face and Kevin says, "One ugly fuck." Steven pulls out a razor and starts slicing at Kevin and Kevin grabs Steven's arm and spin kick to the head and elbow to the arm and grabs the razor and drops it and Kevin take down Steven to the floor and starts thinking about his sister and his father. Kevin grabs the razor and jams in the face of Steven and starts to carve into the burned face of Steven and pulls off his face and Kevin throws away the razor and takes his hand just same way he breaks bricks and he breaks Steven's entire skull into the floor. Billy and Christian covered in blood having one hell of a fight and middle of the fight. Christian says, "I knew you were weak like the rest of the people in this world, like your mother and father and the people of this town. We are the new world, we are the strongest ones, we killed the weak, the world needs us, we thin the herd. Just because you killed a few of the ROTT does not mean we can rebuild and recruit." Billy laughing and Christian asked, "What's so fucking funny?" Billy says, "Are you going to talk me to death or you going to kill me, you whiny bitch?" Christian grabs his special knife and says, "I used this to really enjoy your Aunt Natalie," and he walks towards Billy, grabs a weight and swings and hits Christian in the face, knocks his eyeball out his socket and it's hanging out, and hits him the ribs with it and it's bust up his inside and he bleeds internally, and an uppercut with it, and Christian is all fucked up by those hits with the weights, and Billy looks at the wall of weights and knocks all the weights on top Christian, and he crashed to death. Rose and Kevin walk in the weight room and see Billy smoking a cigarette over Christian's body, and 1 week later a large funeral for those we lose the IRL lives during the Halloween massacre. Billy is deeply sorry about bringing this to this town. Billy says his goodbyes and says he is going to find what is left of the ROTT and make sure nothing like this will happen again. Billy gets into his limo and Scarlett is in the limo and she gives him a file that a woman named Sarah gave to one of her contacts, dossiers on the ROTT. There is a list of potential ROTT members, all children and teenagers with psychological tensions, which Billy will turn over to the FBI. For files of uncontrolled mass murderers, serial killers, the last members of the ROTT, Billy says to Scarlett, "I have to finish this just in case they want to follow in Christian and Steven's footsteps." Scarlett, "I am with you, baby," and they drive off in the limo.